Hi, I'm Abe. I'm the Technical Marketing Manager here in the UK and Ireland for Sony's Photo Channel. Welcome to the Campkins Cameras Facebook page, and as part of their Cambridge Photography Week, we're talking to Stephen Waller, professional photographer and Sony user, about his journey and his switch from DSLR to mirrorless, leading right up to all his recent work, where I managed to spend a day with him at the Ipswich Witches press day Speedway track. So we tested some gear, and that's all in this webinar today. Now, this webinar is a pre-recorded webinar. I managed to catch up with Stephen previously, and so we've put this together for you to give you a fantastic insight to a sports photographer. So without further ado, let's go over and join Steve now. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Mark. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, very good. And thanks ever so much for joining us today as well. And I know you've put a lot of work and effort into this, more than I can say that we asked you to do. So it's great, and we've got so much superb content to go through as well about work that you're currently doing. You know how you started out, how you've got to that, using Sony gear, and lots of behind the scenes and video content as well. So thank you again for supporting us with this. And for those again who are watching, we spent a couple of more than a couple of hours, more like a day together recently in the last few months, where you invited me to a press day with the Ipswich Witches Speedway team, and you tested some gear. So in the webinar, we've got some fantastic behind the scenes footage, video footage, and images that Stephen's kindly put together with us to bring that to life as well. So please stay with us all the way through, because we've got some amazing content. But for Stephen, for those of you that obviously aren't aware of what you do and who you are, it might be a good idea to share. What are you currently working on at the moment? I'll hand this over to you now. So Stephen, over to you.
Thanks, Mark. So so basically, I'm a professional photographer of 25 years, based in East Anglia in a town called Felixstowe, which is claim to fame, really, I guess, is that it's the UK's biggest container port. So we have these massive ships coming in, offloading cargo at Felixstowe on a regular basis. I'm essentially a commercial press and events photographer, so I cover all manner of events that are going on, pretty wide range of subjects that I do, from events like this through to openings of stores and refits of garages and things like that. Like I say, wide and varied, really. I also do some event work in the evenings, and they're sort of quite a wide range again. There'll be people performing, or there'll be inspirational speakers. There's in the course of my work, I come across what people would consider famous faces, often working, photographing politicians or royals and things like that as well. As well as Felixstowe, East Anglia is also home to a number of other ports like Lowestoft, Kings Lynn, Ipswich, and sort of non-containerised ports. And over the years, I've done a lot of work within the port industries. So not just for the ports themselves, but also for associated companies. So I'm doing truck shoots like this. I'm working for the shipping lines, all manner of things, trains I do as well. Basically anything that's connected within the port industry, and with a need for photography for brochures or whatever I get to do. We also have quite a few first call visits to Felixstowe, or bigger ship visits, bigger ships in the world as they keep getting bigger, and I get to go out on tugs and photograph those, like this one here, which is always really interesting work. You see here, I also utilise a drone within my work for the last, 5 or 6 years or something like that. And that's been great to give a different perspective on what I'm shooting. Before I'd be climbing up cranes and things to try to get a high view of things. Also shoot buildings with it. They're fantastic for buildings. This here is a massive warehouse that's being constructed just outside the port, and I've done drone stills and also video here. This is video inside, showing racking that's being put up and what have you. Quite a challenge to fly through here with a drone. It's quite confined. Throughout my career, I've also shot sports. There's a few sports pictures here, all sorts of sports, but primarily these days I'm shooting football and Speedway, the two main sports in the area that I cover. The football team is Ipswich Town, who 40 years ago won the UEFA Cup. Are currently playing in the first division. It's enjoyable doing the football. Just been taken over, and they're hoping to move back up the leagues. Speedway is for a team called the Ipswich Witches. I've covered them throughout my whole career. Speedway, for those that don't know, is a really aggressive, full throttle sport. They're racing on 500cc highly tuned machines that run on methanol fuel. They accelerate as fast as a Formula 1 car, 0 to 60 in well under 3 seconds, and they have to broadside around the corners to actually get round the small track that they're racing on. Inevitably, things do go wrong sometimes when you're racing in close combat like that. And although Speedway is certainly not just about the crashes, it's an inevitable consequence, I guess, when you're racing with motorcycles that are that powerful, that literally don't have any brakes or gears. It could be fairly aggressive, like I say. The pinnacle of the season every year is the British Speedway Grand Prix, which is held at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. They literally build a track within a few days, and there's 40,000 fans travel down there and love it. And given what we got going on in the country at the moment with the football, I thought it was quite appropriate perhaps to finish this little intro with a shot like this of all the fans waving their flags.
Now, I you know what? And when you put all that together for the webinar, and we've obviously met before, and we've discussed your background and so on, but when you kind of put it all together in such a very short space of time there, a couple of minutes, then your background, what you're working on and what you've worked on is huge. You're covering a lot of bases there, whether it's industry or sport. So that's why at the beginning I said professional photographer, because if you start pigeonholing you in different genres, then your background is just so wide. So again, thank you for sharing that, and we'll come on to
cool.
your journey in a second. With these webinars as well, we are live, and we're broadcasting from my shed in Berkshire. But if you can't watch this all the way through, and you want to watch this at a later stage, then the webinar will be recorded and will be embedded in the Facebook page. So amazing work, a variety of work, your journey. So how have you got to, where did you start out with, and what kind of kit were you using, and perhaps bring us up to like present day now, using Sony as you're not part of your workflow but your full kit, and give the audience a bit of an idea of
Sure, yeah.
where you come from. So I'll just
great stuff.
What?
That's it. Well, but basically, early 90s, I was a furniture maker. I was and wood carver. I was creating things like this in the picture, and I was photographing them myself with a little point and shoot camera, and loving taking pictures, trying to be as creative as I could with a camera that didn't really have any adjustment on it. But I kind of enjoyed taking pictures of what I was doing and was working with available light and what have you. And I've always been a Speedway fan, and in 1992 I had the opportunity to photograph at a press day, and this is one of the first Speedway shots that I got. I have a couple of rolls of film that I shot on that day, and this guy is a guy called Tony Ricardson, who went on to be a multi-world champion. Lots of the shots I took that day were blurred because the camera is setting a slow shutter speed, but there was a few like this one here that I was pleased with at the time, and I loved the movement that was in the wheels and everything, and I've tried to kind of replicate that as I've gone on with my career. Over that period of time, I realised I needed to kind of invest in a better camera to do any better, and I bought myself a Minolta SLR, which I used for which I started then taking pictures of, and throughout my career I've tried to you take a picture and you try to see whether it compares with other images, and I was taking pictures of the furniture and what have you, and wondering why it wasn't, and I realized that I needed a subject to kind of concentrate on, so that you can replicate it and keep taking pictures. So with this shot here, I in 1995 I approached Ipswich Speedway and said, look, I've been up once before, can I come again, have a try it? I went along, done a few pictures, and got invited back basically. And this is the first picture that I ever had published, a picture of Chris Louis, who is now the Ipswich promoter. It was the first picture I had published, like I say, or you know, it was in a magazine called Photo Answers, I think it was called. Readers could send pictures in, they'd select pictures, and in them days, you know, whichever images they published, they'd pay you for the image. So that was great. That was kind of on the start. I then approached the local newspaper and asked them if I'd noticed that they never covered the away matches photographically. They always sent a reporter, but there was never any photographer went. So I approached them and asked if they'd be interested. Went and had a meeting with the photo editor at the time, a guy called Dave Kindred, who's a well-known local photographer here, and they signed me up basically to cover the sport. And this shot here was from 1998, so early on really in my career, and that year was a fantastic year for Ipswich. They signed a Polish guy, Thomas Golob, who's on the left here, and Tony Ricardson, who was in the earlier picture, who by then had already become a world champion. They also had Chris Louis, who was a British champion, and kind of away we went. You know, the team done fantastic that year. Early on in '98, with the next image, Mark, I don't know whether I was getting the hang of it or I was just getting lucky, but I kind of captured an image. This image here is one of my first sort of big crash pictures. And soon after, at the British final, there was another one which involved an Ipswich rider, Savalas Clothing, and a top British rider, Joe Screen, who had this spectacular shot as they cartwheeled along. We carried on through the year, and you know, it was with the next image, it can sometimes be quite tough. You know, you have if they race on a shale track, and if it's wet like it was here, you know, literally very difficult to see. Anyway, Ipswich went on and they won everything that year. Like I say, tremendous year. You know, that had some really good meetings. That was really, I mean, I didn't realise at the time how great it was covering it, and how lucky I was. Ended here with a civic reception on the town on the Cornhill at the town hall. Our fans absolutely loved it. There's another shot coming up, which was at the British final, where Chris Louis won the British final. I think Tony Ricardson won the Swedish final. Thomas Golob won the Polish championship, and Chris Louis won the British championship that year. And they're all the fans. It's actually Chris Louis, like I say, who's promoter at the club. It's his birthday today, so kind of appropriate to have that shot up as well.
Yeah, great shot.
We continued on. There's a few memorable shots from a bit later on in my career after '98. This young fella here, Kim Jansen, tremendous character, could always guarantee that he'd give me a picture, whether he was winning, whether he was falling off, whether he was, you know, at the back, he'd always do something. Next shot as well was quite a memorable shot. Speedway is often not raced in the rain because the riders find it difficult to see more than anything else because the rain piles in. This shot here is again probably one of my most memorable pictures over the years. Polish guy called Robert Moscowiak who just cartwheeled over the fence. I mean, it was the most horrendous crash. I think this was from '95. No, it was later than that, but 2005 or something. Really feared for Robert. I mean, it's always horrible. You talk to the guys in the pitch, you get to know them, you know their wives, their children, or whatever, and it's never nice to see them crashing big time. And he piled over the fence, and like I say, I really feel for him. He was over there getting treated by medics, and I didn't want to go anywhere near it. And then all of a sudden they helped him up, and I mean, the great story is that after a few minutes of kind of bringing himself back together, he ended up going out in the rerun as the crash wasn't his fault, and he finished the race on the back wheel, wheeling across the finishing line because he won the race. I mean, that was just tremendous.
Incredible.
So I carried on. By then, I'd been using, I'd switched from the Minolta to Canon kit, and that was kind of the best stuff to use really for sports stuff at the time, or so I believed. And I used Canon stuff for most of my career. it got through to about 2015, and I was covering the football by then, and I was looking for a camera to use for, I was shooting shots like this, which were, I was experimenting with, remote cameras behind the goals. And what I was using was okay, but they were like cameras, just that I'd had old cameras lying around, and I needed to buy something that I could use that was perfectly suited to the job. And I looked around, and with the criteria, I ended up buying a Sony A6000. I mean, this is actually the 6400, but it's from the same family. I'll bring it back up again. Yeah. So, like I say, this is a 6400, but it's the 6000, exactly the same size. It's a tiny, small camera, which, like I say, when I looked at the criteria of what I needed, you need something that will rattle off high frames per second. It's a good file size, and at the time there was nothing else for the money that would come anywhere near it. So I bought one of those, and very soon after bought another one, and they get put behind the goals like this. I run them off a Pocket Wizard remote trigger, which I have a button Velcro to one of my camera bodies that I'm using, A9s. At the time, I was still using the Canons, and I was using the Sonys just for goal cameras. But I sort of picked some great shots. I managed to get some great shots over the years with, or if we're moving on, Mark, in the near future, great shots like this. So the ball this didn't actually end up in the goal, this shot, but it went through the goalkeeper's legs, managed to just clip his knee or something as it went through and went out. Tremendous to get a different viewpoint on what shots you were getting. I don't just use them remotely behind goals. I also use them on a telescopic pole. I've got a 12-meter telescopic pole. Brilliant for, again, giving just getting a bit of height. Moving on, I use them for this shot here was Felixstowe Pier. Just the viewpoint just looks totally different than if you're on the ground. I also use them for some of the house shots that I do. Again, great to just get a little bit of height. I mean, these days I'm using a drone, but it's not always possible to put a drone up, either because of the weather or if you're in a built-up area and what have you. The next shot was taken during the pandemic, obviously. This is for ABP, one of the Port of Ipswich, I think. They've done this, thank you to NHS. This is all made out of bricks because they were bringing bricks in. Got them all measured out, and again, I've done that with the pole. You just couldn't have got that shot from the ground. This was an event with people, lots of people, obviously. What they call it, a Dunkirk Little Ships event, where they have a ceremony or what have you. And it was great to, again, put the camera up on a pole remotely. You can run it off the Sony app, and get a great viewpoint. I also use it at Speedway. This is a shot. It's the camera is strapped to the back of in this case strapped to the back of the start marshal. Is a guy called Peter Ingram, who was always very, very helpful for me. Strapped to his back onto his belt. I made a custom bracket to do it. He's totally unaware that it's there. I'm operating it remotely. The Pocket Wizards have got a great range. You can literally go anywhere in the stadium and fire it. On this occasion, though, for that shot, I mean, it was the camera took the full brunt. I normally double stack filters on the camera just in case, and it, the lens gets quite pitted because the shale comes flying off the back wheels as the guys roar away from the start. But
I think you said this picture is made this week's Speedway Star magazine. Is that right?
That's right. There's a little bit in the Speedway Star magazine this week about how with the picture and showing how the lens got cracked doing it. Like I say, not.
And that's your kit as well. It's got nothing to do with me. That kit. That's your kit.
That's right. Yeah. Can we swap that sometime, Mark? And it's your kit.
Yeah. I mean, you can keep that one.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I say, it's only a filter. It's 20 quid filter or something, and you expect something like that. But I think the shots that you get are worth it. Sometimes you have to sacrifice kit to do it, and that's partly why another reason why I went for the A64,000s as the goal cams, because at the time I didn't want to put something that was £2,000 or £3,000 in the firing range of guys kicking balls at it or whatever. And I did actually in the early days. I'd only just got one of these A6000s, and it got the full force of a shot. A guy called Freddie Sears, who played for Ipswich, missed a goal and just wiped the camera out. And I thought, well, that'll obviously never work again. And it worked fine. I picked it up, turned it on, and it was as good as new. So by now, my kit needed refreshing that I was using, and I decided to try out the A9. I kind of looked at what was available and couldn't believe the spec. I had looked at Sony DSLRs before, and previous to the A9, there's always a reason that I had not to get one. And I saw the specs of the A9 and thought, well, that's perhaps worth trying. So got myself an A9, a 7200 to start off with, and was completely sold on it. That was probably a couple of years ago. Since then, I've bought another A9, a load more kit, got rid of most of the DSLR stuff I was using, and we kind of that's I think we're up to date really with the journey where we are.
Oh, thanks for sharing that, Steve, because there's some, I think that paints a really good picture of how you've evolved, and of course the composition, the imagery, the opportunity you've had, with different sports, and using technology in a different way that maybe you weren't able to use your previous kit. I think obviously it's helped to get those images that maybe you haven't had in the past. So, credit to you for doing that. You mentioned kit. Let's have a look at your kit. So let's have a look at Stephen's kit. So what's going on here?
Well, basically, this kit here is I'd call my sort of standard go-to sports kit, really. Certainly for football, I've got A9 with 7200. There's another A9 with a 2414 on the left there at the bottom, and on the right is the 6400 in a cage with a small wide angle manual lens on it. There's a few other things in there as well. Just lens cleaning cloths, and I can see a little packet with some earplugs in there for when I'm at the Speedway. There's a little flash in there. I mean, basically, this case is a Pelican, or equivalent of Pelican. It's actually a Peli Storm case, which or Hardgid Storm case, which are owned by Pelican. It's their aircraft carry-on. It's just quite a small case, and there's 3 cameras in there, 3 lenses. Incredible, really. And it's my 400-2.8. It's a Canon lens that I use adapted on the Sonys for football. It's not as quick as a Sony lens. We'll obviously come on to that, but that's currently what I'm using until I change. So there's the kit. Over the years, I've tried to reduce the amount of stuff that I'm carrying. There's as a photographer, most photographers I know have been long term in the business end up with bad backs, because of all the stuff they're carrying around. So as someone who's getting older as well, that was kind of one of the reasons as well. I was looking for smaller, lighter weight kit to use. This is, by no means the lightest, but in comparison with other options, that's a good kit to use. I mean, like I say, that's a sport kit. It's not necessarily what I'd use for a PR job.
Yes.
I choose other appropriate things for that. I mean, just quickly, I in the days. I mean, I don't do so many weddings these days. I still do a few now and again, but in the days when I'd done a lot of weddings, I'd have a 7200, maybe a 24-105 on a couple of big, cumbersome bodies with battery grips and everything. And you'd get home, after a day's shoot and be absolutely, shot to bits. It really does take it out of you. Whereas these days, if I'm going to do a PR shoot, I'll take both the A9s and I'll have maybe a 24-14 on one and an 85-18 on the other. And that kit is just so light, fantastic. You walk around with that all day and hardly know you got it.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, we make a variety of glass, and some of our, when we meet people at trade shows pre-COVID and so on, and hopefully we return to events very, very quickly. Some pieces of glass are a little bit heavier than maybe some of the other parts in the range. But I think the fact you've got 64 different native lenses to choose from, and we've not been making mirrorless cameras for as long as maybe people think. So in a short space of time, we've got this range that people can choose from. And now, of course, in the last few years, a 400mm and a 600mm, which kind of leads us nicely into the next part of the webinar, which is you had an opportunity to test with me. But before we come on to that, just to say that, obviously all your kit is yours. We're not supplying you kit. You've bought that and earned that obviously through time, and you're at that point with your Canon telephoto lens. You're using an adapter, and now of course you've done some testing, and I know that's on your wish list and shopping list for the future. But this leads us nicely to we met online in an online chat function at the photography show, and we had a good conversation about some of the things you were asking, which was great. And we said, look, let's keep in touch with each other, because having then looked at your work, I thought there could be an opportunity for us to work in the future. That did happen, and we were able to bring the 400 and 600 and the A1 along to a press day at the Ipswich Witches that the promoter and Stephen invited me to be there, which was fantastic. Never ever done anything like this before, especially within Speedway. So I've gone into that sport with, I'm a very passionate football, rugby union supporter, and this type of sport I've heard of and seen, never had any experience. So I've gone in completely green, completely naive, not completely unaware of what was going to happen, and I had an amazing day capturing Stephen at his best, testing the kit, just getting on with things as normal. And we've put a few snippets to show you that. And Stephen's going to talk over the day about what we did. And we've got some fantastic images to show on a variety of lenses, and predominantly the A1. What we'll do now is play the pit video, Stephen, and then you can talk over it. But for me, it was the noise of the engines. And I know you're laughing because I keep saying it, but there's a clip in this video where I will turn the sound up. And if you haven't been to a Speedway meet or anything like we did, this is incredible. The noise is phenomenal, and everyone was so friendly, and the camaraderie and the friendship, just around the atmosphere was just excellent. So again, thank you for everyone involved that did that. I was very impressed. But back to obviously the webinar. Let's play this video now, and then we'll go through some images that you're going to talk through. So I'm just going to play the video and then just unmute us, and then you can carry on talking through that, Stephen. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah, so you want me to talk through now, Mark?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, this was as we arrived, and just chatting away to Danny King here, who's the Ipswich captain, just about how things are going ahead. We quite often do with these. In pre-COVID times, we would do a shoot at a studio, but with COVID, everyone was having to be outside, so we're just chatting to the guys and just, like I say, chatting about how we're gonna do things and what have you. I mean, Speedway is one of those sports, one of the few sports, I'd say, where you've got guys who are, top of the game, they're racing in England, racing in Europe, a lot of them, and they're so friendly. I mean, fans go around to the pits after meetings and, chat to the riders, get autographs and everything. And you're right, you're saying everyone's friendly, everyone gets on and like I say, very approachable. I mean, the guy on the left there in that shot was Jason Crump, who was a multi-world champion. Top guy, always happy to chat with fans. So this is one of the shots that we took during this this period. This is Danny King just setting up his clutch on his machine. This was taken with a 24 1.4 lens, which I've actually got. I think this was possibly on the A1. The great thing about, I love that lens. It's a lovely lens. There's a 24 wide, so you've got a nice wide angle, but with a wide aperture 1.4, you can kind of blow everything out and concentrate on what you want. In this case, the eye autofocus has picked up his eyes, and his head is kind of the same distance away from the camera as the clutch. So those two pieces are sharp, and they're kind of the only sharp examples in the image. The next image, this just illustrates the point. This wasn't taken on the day, but this has been taken since, where I photographed on this Cranlift Group logo on an exhaust cover, and everything else you can still read the other logos, the other sponsorship logos, but you kind of see the fall off. Something I really like with a lens, you don't normally get that with a normal wide angle lens.
So that was behind the scenes. That was the pit. That was you were getting ready, and then we all moved to the middle of the stadium pitch area, and this is where then you started taking photographs of the team, individuals, and so on. So we're going to play another bit of footage. If you can talk over that again and just give everyone an idea of why you were doing it and what were we doing, and then we've got some really fantastic images to share as well. So let's just play this one. I'll turn the sound down, and then you can talk over it.
So yeah, so here we are out in the infield. Like I say, normally with the press, pre-COVID times, we'd be in a studio doing shots like this. So I normally run a studio shoot every year for the club. So this was a little bit different to how things are normally done, but we're all outside. I was using a 135 1.8 lens, which
here's the sound. Hang on a second.
All the guys out on the track just having a look at the track. Traditionally, with a meeting, they'd all have a track walk. This is me sending some pictures back to the newspaper I was covering for. Had to get a couple of pictures in. So yeah, so like I say, we're out on the centre here, and different to how we would normally do it, but we've gone back in the pits there. I think these are the images that I got. Like I say, I was using a 135 1.8, which I hadn't owned, but I was keen to try out on the A1. I mean, where we ended up setting up to do the shots was maybe not where I would have set them up normally. Someone else had kind of grabbed them and started shooting. And the background, there was an air fence that was not inflated, and that part of the stadium was not fantastic. But knowing that I had the 135 1.8, I knew I could blow the background totally out of focus. So it wasn't going to be an issue really. Lovely lens. I was really quite impressed with it, and that's certainly on the shopping list, Mark. Again, you can see the fall off here. I autofocus on the camera. It's fantastic. I mean, in the old days, I'd use center point autofocus and the focus recompose, which is how a lot of people used to shoot. With autofocus, you just have it on wide, and it just autofocus on the eyes every time. Never have any issues. Same thing here. You can see how lovely and out of focus the background is, yet the subject is spot on, even from a bit further back. I mean, normally, I'd have perhaps gone for, I don't know, a 2.8 or something aperture. But if you really want to throw the background out of focus, shooting wide open, again here you can see the trees behind. I mean, if you just shot that with a 50mm at 5.6 or something, then you'd be able to see all the leaves on the trees behind, and all the terracing and fence and everything. Just your eye wouldn't have been on the subject as much as it is.
The light on the day, I know it wasn't particularly sunny, but it was really good. So you didn't use any external flash or anything like that. I know you took stuff with you, but you didn't actually use anything.
Yeah,
like that, did you?
Yeah, I mean, I always say, I'll use flash if it adds something to the image. If it's really sunny and people have got dark eyes, eyes are, they got caps on and it throws a shadow over their eyes, so you can't see their eyes. Then yeah, of course you want to fill it with flash. But in a situation like there, the light was lovely and diffused, a little bit cloudy and bright, but cloudy. I mean, perfect situation, like having a big softbox, and you don't need flash in a situation like that.
So we kind of stayed. We moved off and came back on again, and then this is where you started to take position, where you obviously through your experience you knew you were going to get some good shots. So there I was. I didn't spend much time trying to take any shots because I was trying to capture you in action, but you clearly knew the spots where to go to get the images you wanted to get for the team. So this little bit of footage now is Stephen testing out the telephoto lenses.
So here I think this is a 400 2.8 I was using here. You see I'm just hand holding that. It's light as a feather. I mean, my Canon 2.8 400 2.8 is lighter than the original generation lenses were, but the Sony is even lighter than that. Easily hand holdable, which is great. It's obviously some of your footage, Mark, of the guys going around. Here it looks like I'm photographing the ground. I'm actually looking at the images through the viewfinder, where we're just reviewing them. A great viewfinder on the A1. It's one of the dudes guys doing a start. You can see how they're pulling away, and again, this is still with a 400. You can see how I'm moving that around. It's not heavy at all. Amazing lens to use, and the focus on it was just on it. You know, just holds the focus so well. Just snaps into focus in an instant. I think this is a 600 I'm holding here. I mean, again, that's holding it with one hand. I was just having a chat with the guys and trying to get them to do a few wheelies at the time. I think just negotiate with them to put on a bit of a show for us.
But I think that's a really good point, because obviously as technology moves on, whatever brand it is, the fact is, because the elements of glass have been repositioned, you know, when you pick up that 400mm, especially, it just somehow doesn't feel like as heavy as maybe older lenses that we've had in the range, or maybe a third party, you know, another manufacturer. So, you know, the fact you've got that immediately, you seem very relaxed with it, and even after all that went on, you're back in the pit again, talking, getting up, you know, not too close because obviously COVID, but you know, you're talking, you're interacting with the team, and you still got that rapport, but you're carrying this 600mm lens in your hand, you know, and it's like you said, you almost didn't know you had it with you. But the images, and let's just bring the images back up. Here we go, and just remove this one. Here we go. So yeah, you did get them to do the wheelies. They wouldn't stop.
That's right. They're fantastic. You know, the guys are great. I mean, you know, it's a press day, and that's, you know, if there's not a time for sort of showboating, then you know, if not doing them on a press day, when would you do them? You know, so they're all keen to help out. There's Jason Crump here. I mean, you can see the depth of field is so shallow. I think that was probably on the 400. I think one of these was with the A9 too as well, which is still nice as well. I think this was the 13518 as well, wasn't it?
Yes, this one is, yeah, and that one as it goes through.
And, you know, this is and those two shots there as well. They're consecutive shots, so I've gone for one, and then I've swung and got the guys who's gone away, and that shows how quickly that snapped in. And you know, if you look down near the, you know, if
the detail in the gravel.
Yeah, if people are watching on a bigger screen, you can see it. It's almost, you know, that the depth of field is so shallow, but it's just focused on the part that you want. Brilliant. I think this might have been the 600.
Yes, yeah.
You know, the background's just gone, isn't it? You know, it's
look how sharp it is as well. It's just, I know he's static. He's getting ready, isn't he, to go?
He is. He's got his hand on the clutch. He's just about to let the clutch go. Ready for takeoff, but it you know, it is lovely and sharp. Again, detail there is incredible. I mean, that could be anywhere, couldn't it? That background, you just no idea where you'd be. Track action, again, lovely and sharp. There's movement in the wheels, which I like to see with an action shot. Much better than sort of seeing a static wheel that's, you know, if you take it with a shutter speed that's too high, then you'd end up seeing all the knobbles on the tires and spokes in the wheels if you could see the spokes. Whereas if, you know, you slow it down a bit. This shot here illustrates what I'd say is probably one of the, I mean, the A1 was fantastic in terms of speed. You know, it's the pinnacle really on the cameras. I mean, my A9s are great. That was just another step up really. But the biggest selling point for me probably is the croppability. And you can see on the picture on the right, which is kind of the original picture, or near enough the original frame that was taken. There's a little red line around his helmet, which is how far we've zoomed in. And you know, it's lovely and detailed. I mean, I've always, since I bought the A9s, I was impressed with how far you could pull into the images that you're taking after the event. You know, if you need to zoom in, but having, I think the A1 is it 50 something megapixels. I mean, it's
yeah. It's a whole different experience. And I think, you know, you said that it was almost, you know, using something that you've never experienced before. Yes, the handling and the feel and the weight of the body is something you're used to, like the A9 II and so on. Excuse me. But the A1's performance and ability, focusing and resolution is phenomenal. Again, thank you for showing that, because when we were putting this together, we were quite amazed actually at how far you could crop in, and that really shows off. You've got a high resolution camera that shoots 30 frames per second with incredible noise reproduction, and it is the culmination of an A7R, an A7S, and what have I missed? An A7, all together to give you this superb kind of all-in-one package. So I'm really pleased you managed to pull out those demonstrations, because that really shows the camera at its fullest capabilities. Let's just bring that up. Oh, wrong one. Hang on a second. It's in your kit. Here we go. And let's just bring that one up. There we go.
Yeah, that's taken from my back garden. And basically, Felixstowe is
sharp.
miles away from any airport. And the planes that go over here are anything from about 15,000 to about 30,000 feet. This was obviously at the lower range, but like I say, photographed this in my garden, and it's unbelievable, really, the sharpness of it. And with the 600, I think it was with a converter on it, makes it, I don't know, 840.
Oh,
or something.
see, yeah, and if you're using the converter and you go into crop mode, you can push even further. So incredible reach. We're going to have to start wrapping up in a second, Stephen, but there's still a few things we want to look at. But one of them is Speedway Mag and
Speedway
your
Star.
images, the Speedway Star, and there's Speedway Star website down the bottom as well if you want to find out more about Speedway and see some of Stephen's images. So yeah, it made the front cover in June.
That was one of the I think the next edition after we'd had the press day, wasn't it, or a couple of weeks after or something. That was that was one of the images that we took with the A1 and 400-28, I think, that shot, or the main shot. Guy called Jeff Davis does all the cover designs and whatever. He does a great job of them. And there was a big bit in about these webinars that we're working together, and a bit about my photography inside the mag the same week, which was really nice.
It's lovely to see that in print as well, because you can physically have that in your hand, and a lot of other people are going to be looking at that as well. So you must be really proud to have that and have that relationship with the people in that industry and sport.
Yeah, well, Speedway staff have done a great job over the pandemic. There's obviously been no Speedway for over a year. The season was just about starting when it all starts in March, and it just totally wiped out for a whole season. And the guys there have done a great job, really. They've kept producing a magazine every week, finding something to put in it.
Amazing.
So no, it's good on them, really.
So we're going to finish off with some features that a lot of people may not know are in the A9 and the A9 II and the A1, and that's the ability to use the camera in a way that for your line of work, especially with working with agencies and so on, the ability to be able to tag and things like that. So I know tagging's quite, well, it was one of the things what we kind of met and we were discussing originally on. So you got a little bit of footage you put together around tagging. Do you want to talk through this now, and then we'll finish on that? But it's really good, because I think a lot of people don't realise you can do this with the app. A lot of people think the app is just for transferring images or maybe remote control, but there's a huge amount of features in the app, and one of them is tagging, especially at your line of work. This works well. So I'll just play this now, and then if you can talk over, that would be brilliant.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, traditionally you'd have to use a laptop to send images, which is cumbersome if you want to move around. Here with the transfer and tagging app, you can literally call up the images. I lock the images on the camera and then just send selected images over. You can scroll through the images that I've downloaded. Both the cameras are set up so either camera can send at the same time. You can click on the image, you can zoom in on it, see if it's sharp, which they usually are with the Sony stuff. You can add IPTC metadata on it for captions, which you always need to do. You can crop the image, you can rotate the image. I was a bit wobbly there, wasn't I? Really good. Like I say, traditionally at football and Speedway, live events you'd be trying to send on a laptop. It frees you up from having to do that if you use the app. I mean, it's probably still quicker if you've got a lot of images to send and you've got you've got somewhere where you can sit down and be based with a laptop. But there's, for instance, at Vauxhall at the Speedway, you want to be moving around. You know, when I used to send stuff on the computer, I'd have to sit down in the middle. You'd be pretty much stuck there until he'd sent enough images to the newspaper before you had the freedom to move around. Whereas being able to send them on the phone, you can, you know, send whichever images you want. You can literally move around and be captioning and sending as you're going. Works really well.
But Stephen, I think we're going to bring up your website. This is to find out more about Stephen's work as well. Here's Stephen's website and also his Instagram handle as well. So if you want to find out more information, contact him directly for any tips and so on. Then his details are there. Stephen, look, all I can say again is thank you ever so much for everything you've done as well. And join us again in the future for more webinars. Thanks again, Stephen. And we'll see you again soon. All the best.
Cheers.